All right, let's do this thing. Hello, friends and fiends. Welcome to Bugs Need Heroes, a podcast where an artist and an entomologist team up to illustrate the inspiring abilities of insects by creating bug-themed superheroes. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Kelly.
Producer Derek and Desdemona are also here. Before we get started creating this bug-inspired hero, what's bugging you, Kelly?
Not much. Coming at you live from friend of the pod, Ped's lab today.
Thanks, friend of the pod, Ped.
Thank you, Dr. D, my buddy. Yeah, we have a special guest today. So we're recording on a different day. I do have to teach right after the podcast.
You're busy
So
today. Huh?
Today's busy. Yeah, I have some guest speakers coming to kind of give a sort of guest lecture to one of my classes. So I have to meet them and make sure everyone's comfortable before they have to talk.
You're a
So,
gal
yeah.
about town today.
Today I am. You can see that I'm dressed like a real human being and not in a hoodie or a flannel shirt, as is my usual attire.
Yeah, I know how that goes. Yeah.
What's bugging you, Amanda?
I'll tell you what's bugging me, Kelly. Squirrels. Squirrels are what's bugging me. There's a squirrel that lives in my crawl space, and he needs to go. And it has been a journey.
Well, lucky for you, your brother hates squirrels.
He
and
does
is
hate
the guy
squirrels.
to get rid of them.
I am now also on team hate squirrels. Because I just don't know what he's doing in there. I just hear him scritching away. And I'm like, my house!
He's living.
I paid good money for this house! So, yes, I've gotten a new squirrel unfriendly entrapment device.
Mm-hmm.
I will set up later today, and hopefully my squirrel troubles are soon solved.
I hope so, in a way that is comfortable for everyone. It
will not be comfortable for him, unfortunately.
It happens, right? It happens.
But his final meal will be peanut butter, and he will
perfect.
enjoy it. So
peanut butter.
Yeah, that's mostly and it's been dang old cold. I don't know if it's cold over there in
it is
Jersey.
32. It is 32 degrees here in New Jersey right now. It is frosty.
We had freezing rain last night, and so I went to get in my car, and it was encased perfectly like a pupa in a pupation of ice.
Waiting to emerge as a nicer car.
Yes, ready to come out as a new leaf instead of a 2010 leaf. Yeah, that's it mostly. Squirrels and ice and squirrels.
I get it. We have
Bradon,
very special guest. Do you want to introduce? Yeah.
I was gonna say, Bradon, what's bothering you? You're over there in the nice weather part of the country, but apparently not right now.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me, guys. But yeah, my name's Bradon, and what is bugging me today is I feel weird saying as you are in New Jersey and Oregon, but Florida has been gone. Florida left the chat about 3 weeks ago and has not re-entered. And I'm originally from Washington State, and this is not what I signed up for when I moved to Florida. So it has been overcast for 3 weeks, and that's just not what I signed up for.
What's the temps down there?
See, that's embarrassing though, because it's like, what did you say, 32 degrees?
It's 32.
Yeah,
it is
it's 30 here.
It is a cool 68 degrees in Gainesville, Florida.
How dare you get off my podcast, Brandon?
You have to leave.
So yeah, just coming from Washington State, it's not what I signed up for. It's the same. We got 3 days of snow last week in Washington. That's what my family said. So
wow.
I know it's pitiful to compare, but it's just not what I envisioned.
When you move to a warm place, I get it.
Yeah, if you move to a warm place, you want it to be warm. So like, what the heck is up with that? So
in the crochet community, there's this thing called temperature blankets, where you pick a color that represents each, like, probably about 5 degrees, and then you do a stitch of each color. And at the end of the year, you know what temperature it was every day. And I started watching it to see if that was something I wanted to do this year. But my younger sister lives in Arizona, so I was tracking it for her too. And the difference between my Portland, Oregon temperature blanket and the Phoenix, Arizona temperature blanket was stupid. It was like, it's 32 degrees in Portland. It's 105 in Arizona. I was like, oh, okay. I guess I won't be doing this. So similar, I guess, to good old Florida over there.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think the thing that surprised me is, I grew up in Washington State my entire life. Um and it's pretty constant. Like it's a
Hmm.
lot like Oregon, right? So if it's raining, it's going to rain all day. And then if it's, a certain temperature, it's going to be about that all day. But the amazing thing about Florida is, at least northern Florida, is the difference between the high and the low is like 30 degrees.
Oh
So
yeah.
Oh,
it'll be like, at least in January and February, it'll be like, it'll get down to like 50, and then it'll get up to like 70 or 80 in the middle of the day. And
that's
I'm
so
like,
weird.
okay,
How
How
do
so a
do
you
you?
coat
dress
in the
for that?
I
morning.
was gonna say, how do you
Yeah.
pick your outfit for the day?
Yeah, it's like a coat in the morning, you get out of lecture, and now you're stripping on the way to your next lecture. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know about this. So, yeah, it's interesting.
So, Brady,
Well,
tell us a little bit about your bug journey. How did you become interested in bugs? How long have you been interested in bugs? Were you a bug kid like Kelly was?
Oh yeah. So I was definitely a bug kid. I was known as the bug kid. So not
Mm.
only was I the bug kid, I was loud about being the bug
you were
kid.
the bug kid.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, so I was got into bugs when I was like 3 or 4, like
Oh yeah. So you
as
you were
early as
ready.
I can even think, right? When I gained consciousness, I was like, "Ooh, bugs." Um and then I was just hyper fixated, and I haven't left that phase. And I'm hoping I don't, saying as I'm getting my bachelor's degree in entomology. That would be a little awkward. So, yeah, so I was super into it from 3, 4 years old. And I am in my undergrad now. I'm third year at the University of Florida, getting my bachelor's degree in entomology, and I have not looked anywhere else since. As long as I can remember, I knew I wanted to be an entomologist, whatever that meant. Um, and yeah, it's been a wild ride. So yeah, it's pretty fun. So when I was 11, I had a make a wish. And instead of meeting John Cena or going to Disneyland, I wanted to go on an insect safari.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, so I got to go to Panama with my family for a week. Um, and the Make a Wish Foundation is like the most amazing organization. I can't say enough good things about them, but they were generous enough to take my whole family there for a week. By the way, I have 4 siblings, so that's a lot of people.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's a
4
big family.
siblings and my 2 parents, in Panama for a week. And they were also generous enough to take my friend Phil Torres with us. So he, has a long experience with the tropics. So he told us, where to find things, what to do, what not to do. Most importantly, he showed me how to take photos of bugs, macro photography. So
Mm.
Panama is a closed country from biological exports, so you can't bring any specimens out unless you are,
You need
with a
a permit
school,
usually.
museum, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh
permit, yeah.
really?
So just a member of the population cannot do that. Member of the public rather. Um, so what did Make a Wish do? They gave me a camera so that I could take photos while I was there instead of taking specimens out, which was amazing. So I have like 3,000 photos of that,
Wow.
of bugs that 11-year-old me found. It was the most amazing opportunity. I got to meet a bunch of entomologists that work there. Smithsonian has a big presence there. So I was
Oh,
able to see all the research stations and all of that stuff. I um, I went to an island that is a big research area in Panama, called BCI, Barro Colorado Island. Ton of research happens there. That was amazing.
I'm very jealous. This sounds super
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Producer
it
Derek
was.
went to Panama, but he went to Panama for bats instead of bugs, and
Yeah,
he had to get a ton of shots. Did you have to get a lot of shots at 11?
no, I did not. I did not.
Yeah, I've talked to one of the professors at that research station from the Smithsonian, and she asked me about the termites eating her house.
Oh,
Yeah, they have a lot of termites there. You can see them in the
Mhm.
trees. They got the arboreal nests, and it
Oh
just
yeah.
looks like a weird soccer ball that's just hanging out in the tree.
Mhm.
It's pretty neat.
but
And
it's
then
full of
if you're very
full of
lucky,
bugs.
if you look underneath, you might find there's a species of bat that lives inside them.
So
Wow.
termite and bug hanging out together in the same little.
Well, termites are
That's
bugs,
fun.
but termites and bats.
Sorry, I didn't know. Bats, bugs.
Yeah,
How,
there's
how
several bats that live with other animals. The one of the more impressive ones is there's some bats that live inside crocodile burrows.
I thought you were going to say
Oh,
crocodile's
weird.
mouth for some reason. I could just imagine like a cartoon crocodile open his mouth and then bats, 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 bats hanging from every tooth.
But yeah, Panama's
Yeah.
amazing. Biodiversity out there is
Yeah,
incredible.
it's unreal. And also the reverse from that, there is a fly that lives on bats in New
Many
Zealand.
there's a whole bunch of bat
Mhm.
flies. They're weird as
They
heck, and we're
are
probably not going to talk about them because they're very uncomfortable to look at.
they are wingless flies.
Yeah,
So
Oh,
flightless flies, which I'm like, why if you ever feel down, just remember that there's a fly that can't fly. Um,
uh,
so
doing better than a fly that can't fly, at least.
mhm,
Well, all right. And you said now that you're a grown up instead of just a wee 11-year-old.
sort of, not really.
At least you're not
um,
11 anymore. Now you have a podcast of your own,
that's
right?
right. Yeah. So I host my
Oh, dear.
own
Oh, I hate that. Producer Derek has put a picture of the thing that lives on bats, and I
the
hate
bat
it.
flies. They don't even look like
Sorry,
flies.
I got distracted. They don't. I'm grossed out. You're
for
right, Derek.
people
You
who
don't.
aren't familiar with bat flies, the closest relative you may be familiar with are deer keds. So they're
Yeah.
an ectoparasite that feeds on the blood of their host, kind of like fleas, but a little bit different. They got big
Yeah.
grabby legs. They look kind of like
There's a few
spiders. They're
different kinds
awful.
of heads out there, and they're all kind of funky looking.
Anyway, sorry, I'll leave.
Sorry. Back to you. And so you have a podcast called Little Dudes Academy, I believe.
Right, yeah. So, Lil Dude's Insect Academy, I started that when I was, oh man, a couple of years ago now. 2020 is when I started
Mm.
doing the podcast. And it is another bug themed podcast. So if you guys can't get enough, head over there. But obviously
Check it out.
after this episode. But yeah,
Set up the
so
playlist. The Spotify will generate all the bug podcasts in one spot.
yeah, yeah, I wish. Maybe someday. Yeah, so what what I do is the podcast called Lil Dudes Insect Academy. It's another entomology themed podcast. And what I like to do is highlight careers in entomology. So I would say it's more like it's definitely guest focused. So I have a different guest on every week, and it's sort of like Joe Rogan in that sense. It's really about the guest, not so much, obviously the bugs, but the people behind the bugs. I like to joke around that it's like Joe Rogan, but we have actual experts on that actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But
But
I digress.
factual. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so but yeah, so I like to hear about where people came from, what they're doing, what they're doing for a living, their experience with college and academia and all that kind of stuff. Um,
I will
I've
be a
had
guest
every.
on the podcast. So
That's right.
Oh. Oh.
That's right.
day
Kelly's
and
gonna be
age
on.
friends, come check it out.
That's right. Yeah, and there are. You guys might recognize some other faces. We've got a lot of overlap. So some of the people that have been on here have also been on mine as well, and vice versa. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty fun time. But yeah, so a little bit of a different format. Also, in the past, my episodes were only about 20 to 25 minutes long. And that's mostly because I used to record them in person at the ESA conference.
Hmm.
And I've moved away from that. So the next episodes coming up will all be, and for the foreseeable future, will all be longer form, an hour plus long. That way I can really highlight the people better. because
Mhm.
before it was pretty rushed and wasn't really able to get
Recording
through.
quality is probably better too, not having to try to talk at a conference.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, so there were a lot of decisions that were a lot of reasons for that decision, but yeah, so I'm doing them remotely now and longer form, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So we've got some really exciting ones coming up. But yeah, we just passed 110 episodes.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations. That's
Thank
awesome.
you, thank you. Yeah, so maybe don't go back and listen to the first ones because you will hear prepubescent squeaky voice Braden. But or do I don't really care.
They're out
But
there for
yeah,
everyone now, buddy. That's
oh yeah, they're there
The internet is
forever,
forever.
and
Yeah.
I can't take them down. Well, I could, but that's wrong. Anyways, yeah, so it's a really good time. And then also sort of related to the podcast is my organization as a whole, also called Little Dudes Insect Academy.
Hey, can you
Um,
tell us more about that organization and what it does?
yeah, yeah. So Little Dudes Insect Academy, we're a nonprofit. So we're run off of donations, and so the equipment and everything that is provided for the podcast is through that organization. And basically, what happened, the long story of it is, I got back from Panama at 11 years old, and I realized that I really like to teach, right? So that's kind of where that started. So I came back and I started teaching all my friends and families about bugs, and I did a lot of like in-person bug workshops, right? So private schools and homeschool groups and all of those people would bring their students over, and I would teach them about entomology and how to and why to curate an insect collection. So I
Mhm.
did pinning workshops and stuff like that, and that sort of
Oh,
evolved
fun.
over time into becoming a nonprofit. So I kind of realized that it's important to reach the people who might not be as fortunate to afford an extracurricular like that, right? So we decided to become a nonprofit. That was in 2020. Yeah, so it's that focus. So our mission is to introduce middle school and high school students, really K through 12, to
Mhm.
entomology. And the way we do that right now is always evolving. So, like I said before, it was in person workshops. Now I'm in school, so I don't do many in person things. So I've shifted to an online
Yeah.
aspect. So that's where the podcast is. I also do a lot of things on YouTube. So I make YouTube videos as well. So I've got a weekly series called Bug of the Week where I talk for like 15 minutes about a different cool bug that I've been learning about,
What
basically.
what was the bug this week?
So that's funny. I haven't done one in a while because I was figuring out like actually an editor. So I finally got an editor on board, and so we're starting it back up again this week.
Oh,
So I'm
exciting.
thinking
Yay.
I'm thinking what I'm going to talk about is bug brains. So if you're
Mhm.
curious about how, like, if do bugs have brains? Are they like humans? How do they see or experience the world around them? Check that out. It'll be out by the time this is out, I'm sure. But
Yes. 'Cause that's
yeah.
the part about bugs that fascinates me is like how different they are from us.
Oh yeah.
Like a cat more
Yeah.
or less functions the way I function. I eat, I breathe like a cat does. We're both
Mm-hmm.
mammals. But a bug, like breathing is like a whole different process. Their
Mm-hmm.
hearts are like a whole different process. It's wild to me, like how
Yeah.
different the organization of an organism can be and still like both live on the same planet. It's wild.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. And that's what we talk about on there. It's basically me yapping to a camera for 15, 20 minutes because that's what I like to do. So um yeah, so YouTube podcast right now. That's kind of what it is right now. I do a lot of work with raising money for our programs. also getting to the ESA conference every year. That's a
Yeah,
big portion of our
and you said you guys
mission.
do workshops?
Yeah, so again, I don't really do a whole lot of in-person ones right now because I'm in school in
Yeah. Oh,
Florida,
yeah.
but I'm doing online ones pretty often, so um, over Zoom. So if you have a group that you'd like to um, that you'd like me to teach bugs to in some aspect, I'm always enjoying that. And again, we're nonprofit, so we're always raising money, and that's
Mhm.
kind of how we get that stuff out there to more people. Because I really think the world would be a better place if there were more entomologists out there. So that's kind of what I'm all about. So the end goal after I am through my schooling and everything is to get resources out there for um, mainly high school and middle school students about
Right.
entomology, because entomology is a really good career path, and nobody even knows about it a lot of the time until they're in college, right? So something I found in my research, and this is a big part of my fundraising um, pitch with my nonprofit, is that entomology is such a an amazing career path. Like, you have some amazing opportunity, and you know, insects make up the vast majority of the biomass on the planet,
Mhm.
and very few people study them. It's amazing to me.
And then
Um,
within even entomology, very few people study specific taxons,
oh
right?
yeah, for
So
sure.
maybe everyone cares about monarch butterflies, but no one cares about this, I don't know, tiny weevil that lives in the middle of nowhere, living his
Hmm.
little booty life.
Oh yeah.
So it's pretty tough. There are so many arthropods in the world
Hmm.
that they could all use a little bit of representation, I think, from entomologists.
Absolutely. And I really, um, I really want to emphasize that nobody really seems to care. Um, and what I like to think about, kind of the end goal, is for me to have students who learned about bugs through Lil Dudes, um, and that inspired them to pursue a full career in entomology. And what I'd really like to see is those students coming up into college and being, um, standing out in
Yeah. Oh,
in
yeah.
the college university setting. That would be really exciting because there really isn't anything out there for that age group. So I see a lot of resources for little kids, right? Coloring books and bug coloring books and stuff for that age group. And then there's
Yeah.
college textbooks, and then there's
Mm.
nothing in between. It's crazy. So,
There's like a
growing up,
few pop sci books you
Yeah.
can get on
yeah,
specific bugs. There's
yeah,
a couple on mosquitoes because everyone's afraid of mosquitoes.
mm-hmm,
But there's not kind of a ton of intermediate books.
mm-hmm.
A reminder to our listeners: we do have a Goodreads account where you can find middle kind of pop sci books that I've read and recommended
Oh, that's
uh,
awesome.
over the years, and we also have a children's Goodreads just for kids books for bugs. Braden, if you want to give us suggestions to add to those lists, we're always happy to hear it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, bug books are like my favorite thing ever, especially they might not be as accessible, but especially the older ones with the cool like hand-drawn illustrations are
Hmm.
really
I
awesome
love
to
it. I
me.
Oh, I
love a
love
good
those.
scientific illustration. Yeah.
Yeah.
I collect old taxonomic keys
Mhm.
for mostly for bugs, but for other things too. And the drawings are just gorgeous.
Yeah.
I have a few from like the mid 1900s, um,
Wow.
and and a couple from the 70s, and they're all like really pretty. Anytime
Mhm.
I go out, I try to find a used bookstore and pick up a taxonomic key if I can when
So
I go on
cool.
vacation because that's I guess that's just what I do on vacation. That's not just what I do on vacation, I promise,
Yeah,
but
the
I
the
do
bugs
look.
creep their way in for sure on vacation, yeah. Um, yeah, so the end goal is, to, get the PhD, uh, be a
Right there with
professor
you, buddy.
somewhere. Yeah, be a professor somewhere and write curriculum and resources for that underserved age group, and most importantly, make it really accessible to, everyone at a very affordable, if not free, um,
Yeah.
price point, and that's why we're a nonprofit, is to make it more accessible to more people.
There are some
There's
really good education PhDs out there specifically
Yeah,
focused on curriculum building.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, so that's actually my minor is, educational technology.
mm,
So,
awesome.
yeah, so the major is in biological sciences of insects, and then the minor is in educational technology, so it kinda blends together into what I wanna do eventually, and that is create those resources that I wish that I had as a bug kid. So, growing up, I would always, I kinda think that's why bugs are a phase and not a
Mm,
long-term thing. They're like dinosaurs in that way. Every kid
yeah.
goes through that bug phase, and it's a phase, I think, because they run out of things that are appropriate for their age, that are
Mm.
engaging, accurate, appropriate, and like I said, engaging still. So I want to bridge that gap, see if I can retain more young students in that
What
age
age
group.
group is the biggest gap, you think? Like, where does that gap start?
Ooh, I would say definitely. Oh, when it starts, I would say definitely into end of elementary school into middle school.
Mm,
I would say is the big gap, because into high school, students really start to think about what they want to do, and if you're into science, it's pretty limited. It's like medicine, or if you're into science, it's going to be medicine, engineering, or one of the hard sciences like biology, general biology, chemistry. And obviously, there's nothing wrong with any of those things, right? Those are all super, super important. But
yes.
bugs are really cool, and no one considers that as a career. And you can do really well for yourself, and you'll never get old.
I
Never get
think it,
old never get bored of the bugs, I should say.
yeah, but I think it might also depend on who your teachers are. So,
Yeah.
when I was in high school, because I lived in a shore town,
Mm.
we had like marine biology as one of our options
Yeah.
in high school to take, and but my general biology class was run by an entomologist. Shout out to Dr. Levy. You
Really?
are awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen Dr. Levy in years. But he would teach us high school biology all during the year, and he would use bugs as topics because that was his specialty. And then during the summer, he would go to like South America and do research. He was
No way.
pretty amazing guy. I think he's still around. I think he's retired now. But that was like my introduction sort of to entomology. Other than that, I was just feral and brought bugs home on my own,
Mhm.
living in the
Mhm.
middle of nowhere. Um, but yeah, I think if you have teachers who are exposed, they don't have to be entomologists, but even if you get a couple high school teachers who kind of get the value of arthropods, like you said, they're the greatest form of biomass we have
Mhm.
on the planet, and their importance to the general well-being of ecosystems and God, the pollinating they do, we
Mhm.
need them.
Mhm.
We need teachers to kind of get how important they are and start talking to students about that while they're young, which again
Absolutely.
is why your curriculum is going to be so valuable.
Yeah, I'm hoping, and I see a lot of interest, especially in um, private school and homeschool,
Mm,
Mhm.
because they seem to really care about tailoring the student's interest to a
mhm.
career. Um, so
I
yeah, it's
imagine it's really
definitely
hard for public school teachers to do that
Right.
given the huge
Yeah.
quantity of students they have
Mhm.
to deal with all the time, and how just underfunded public
Oh,
schools are
absolutely.
in general.
Mhm. And so,
What a shame.
yeah, so that's kinda what I'm trying to get at with the podcast and YouTube is really accessible, at least getting students interested, and then the harder curriculum that I'm gonna be working on is definitely more for the students that are already decided, like, "Oh, I really like bugs," right?
Mm,
So that's kinda the end goal, and what I like to think about is how much better humanity, human health, our food supply, all of these things would be if we just had more people studying bugs. I think last time I checked, there are an estimated like 7 or 8,000 entomologists worldwide,
wow,
uh,
that's
which
Is that
smaller.
is
all?
That's smaller than I
tiny.
was expecting.
That's tiny. Yeah.
That seems wild to me because,
Mhm.
like you said, it seems like you should start kind of at the, not to say the bottom, because I don't want to, I don't wanna imply that this is
How
the
dare
pits.
you?
I know, I'm sorry, but if you want to start at like the foundation of that, is
Mhm.
that better? At the foundation of like where things start, bugs are right there,
Oh,
like
yeah.
literally on the ground level here. Like it just makes sense to me that you'd follow the where the bugs go. I mean, we've talked on this podcast a lot about like we wouldn't have chocolate if there's not bugs. We don't
Mhm.
have, you know, all these vital important parts of what makes our everyday function starts with having a bug doing its job well. Imagine
Mhm.
all the detritus and everything that would exist on the land if there weren't bugs. That's wild. Only
Yeah.
like 7,000? Wow, that's crazy to think there's more like garbage men in a in in a state than there are
Yeah.
in like all of the entomologists in all the world. That's
Although
nuts.
we do
Yeah.
need you, garbage men. We need
We
you
do
so
need you
bad.
too, garbage men. You
Please
too
continue.
are.
Yeah, and in the same strain, obviously they're super important, but in my research, um, again, for my fundraising, I make a big case for why we need more entomologists, and one of the things I found was that there are more nurses in the state of Alaska than there are entomologists in the world.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
Wow.
yeah, so
That
crazy.
is
Obviously, again, that's super
we
important,
need your nurses,
but
yes.
We need nurses.
yeah, but just to put into perspective, I thought that was a pretty
That's
crazy
incredible.
statistic. Yeah.
So Balto should have been a big bug pulling a sleigh. Recently, the Iditarod, is that what it is? Like the anniversary of it came up, and I'm gonna tell you, people be nuts going out into the woods with dogs pulling their sleighs. I couldn't. It's probably not called a sleigh. That's probably something Santa rides in. Is it?
I think it's still a sleigh. A
Is it
sled.
still a
I think
sleigh?
it's a sled, technically a sled, but
I'm sure it has a fancy name though. If you're a professional,
oh, probably, yeah.
uh,
Oh, yeah.
Well, so Braden, you've spent all this time, and you're an undergrad, so you've been studying bugs as well. Do you have a favorite bug or type of bug? Maybe if you don't have it doesn't have to be
You
species
know,
level.
what's your dream? What's your okay? Here's $1 million,
Mm.
Braden. Go study one bug. What bug are you gonna try and study?
mm, that's a honestly, man,
I know it's a
honestly,
tough question.
you
That's our
know,
hardest question here on
There's too many
yeah,
BugsNeedHeroes.
bugs. There's too many bugs to pick from.
yeah. I think the hardest exam in a class would be, what is your favorite bug?
Yeah.
Hardest question on the whole exam. It changes, I feel like, by the week,
Mhm.
um, but sort of a constant that I've had is social insects in general. I've always been super interested in the colonies, and of course, social insects, for those listening, are the, the insects that form colonies or maybe interact in a way past courtship and mating. Um, so the quintessential social insects you would think of are the eusocial insects, like ants, termites, some bees, some wasps, the
Can
ones
you
that.
define eusocial for our listeners who may not
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So eusocial is the highest form of sociality that we have observed so far, and that is when an insect not just insects actually, but I
Yeah,
digress.
there are
Most
other
of them
animals.
are insects. Most of them are insects. They form complex colonies, and the main distinguishing factors are that the colonies fit within they need these three qualifications to be considered eusocial. And that is reproductive division of labor, cooperative brood care, and
Mhm.
overlapping generations. So, reproductive division of labor is when members within the colony all have distinct tasks and specializations for a certain task. So, for example, if you think about a honeybee colony, right? So in honeybees, there's a queen. Her goal is to lay eggs. The workers have lots of jobs, and the drones, the males, their job is basically just to reproduce and make a new colony.
Right.
In ants, which are my favorite,
Mhm.
their tasks are much more specialized, specific, right? So the queen's is to lay eggs. The workers have many different jobs, but there are even castes within the workers. So there are soldiers, nurse ants. There are ants that their only job is to um, clean the colony, the nest
Mhm.
crevice, right? So yeah, reproductive division of labor, basically task specialization within a colony in relation to their reproductive capability, right? So workers in a honeybee colony, for those at home, all the workers within a honeybee colony are females, but they don't reproduce. They are sterile. So the queen is the only mature reproductive within the colony. So that's reproductive division of labor.
Right.
Cooperative brood care is that many members within the colony work together to care for the young, and they are not necessarily the ones who are the parents of the offspring. So, for example, within honeybees, again, the workers care for the young, but they are not the parents of the young,
They're the
right?
siblings.
They're actually siblings, yeah. Um, so yeah, cooperative brood care, and then the last one is overlapping generations, and this one's really important because there are lots of animals that do reproductive division of labor and cooperative brood care, but they don't do overlapping generations. And that is within a colony at a given time, there can be many different generations existing at the same time. So the queen is the mother, right? The workers are the daughters, and there are often many different generations within the colony of those workers. So the workers, the daughters of the queen, will be caring for the brood, which will be the next generation of daughters of the queen, right? So there are multiple generations overlapping within the colony at a given time. And these three categories are what we deem as eusociality. So um, E.O. Wilson was a very um, famous entomologist,
Yes.
and
Very
he's the one.
controversial entomologist also.
Yeah, yeah.
All the
But
best
yeah,
are.
Yes. I met him and he was actually pretty nice, but
really,
very
that's awesome.
maybe we'll get into like a one day controversial entomologists
The
episode.
Bone
And
Wars.
I'll tell you
Yeah,
all about it.
yeah. So he is really the father of um, this social biology structure.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
he defined eusociality originally back in the 80s, I believe. And that is kind of what we follow for this blueprint of what eusociality is. So we've kind of adapted it over time, but um, those three characteristics are what we deem as eusociality. So really cool thing, the largest group of eusocial organisms is the Hymenoptera, which is the order that includes ants, bees, and wasps. And we have seen eusociality arise at least 4 different times separately in the Hymenoptera, which is really, really cool. But also there are lots of other animals that are eusocial, such as a really obscure, sort of little-known order of insects called thrips.
Mhm.
There are lots of thrips that are eusocial. Um, they are really, really cool. If you guys don't know about them, look them up. I could talk about them for a whole episode, but thrips are really cool.
Yeah, we'll
There's
have to
at
get
least
a thrip expert on because they're a really interesting group.
yeah, they're
And
really cool. Really weird, and lots of people don't even know about them. I didn't even know about them until I got here to the University of Florida and took a class about the intro to entomology class, and I learned about thrips. Anyways, um, there's also at least one species of beetle that we know of that's eusocial. There are shrimp that are eusocial, and also um, the only vertebrate that we know of so far is the naked mole rat.
yeah, I know
Oh,
what
yeah,
you're
okay, that makes
They are
sense. Yeah.
eusocial. Yeah, there's some argument that meerkats are eusocial, but that one's a little controversial. Yeah, so social insects, that's kind of what I've been hyper fixated on the most
Mhm.
in the last couple of years, and
It's a
what
fun group.
I've yeah, and what I've become increasingly interested in is ants. So ants are pretty cool. So I've got to do research to get through school, but the obviously the end goal is with little dudes and becoming a professor at some point. But
So
to get through school,
which ant
sorry, go
type
ahead.
specifically is the one you're interested in?
You know, I haven't narrowed it down. I'm third year in my undergrad, so I haven't completely decided, but I'm looking at doing some research pretty soon, not on a specific kind of ant, but more their behavior.
Mm.
And what I'm really interested in is their hygienic behavior. So, how does an ant society defend against disease? So, if you think about humans as a society, we all went through this pretty recently, um,
How
but
dare you
disease
bring
will
up
break
the
out.
times?
Sorry?
How dare you bring up the times, the bad
Yeah, my
times?
my bad. I shouldn't bring up the past. But yeah, so obviously human health and disease and viruses are a big deal. Um, so what I like thinking about is how do ants defend against disease and how do they
Mm.
care for an ant society is much like human society, right? Lots of organisms living within um, in a close proximity. And with ants, it's kind of a step further in that they're all siblings, so they all share a lot of genetics. And so, what does that do to the
I haven't
group?
considered that before. That
Hmm.
if you're vulnerable to a disease, your
Yep.
twin's going to be vulnerable to a disease,
Absolutely,
and assumably, a whole ant colony is going to be. They're all Habsburging over there. They've all got that same
absolutely,
Habsburg jaw. Wow.
absolutely.
So you could decimate an insect population pretty quickly, or at least one colony pretty
Mm,
quickly with one vulnerability disease.
you know, it depends
Um.
because I would say insects in general, no,
Mm,
because most insects, the vast majority of insects are um, they sexually they sexually reproduce, and
okay.
so
I think
um,
Amanda mostly just meant like one ant colony,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Just
but
given the
one hill.
relatedness.
yeah, yeah,
One
that
hill.
that's a good point. Yeah, so like one colony of ants, the whole reason that we think that eusociality might have evolved is because of high relatedness within a colony.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the point, is that all the members within the colony are very closely related. And so that is one of the problems, is that if they're all super closely related, then they're really susceptible to disease. So that's kind of what I'm interested in studying at the moment, is how do they defend against disease? How do they care for How do they dispose of the dead? What are the
And they
hygienic?
do. They generally remove them from nests,
Yeah,
which is
exactly,
interesting to think about.
exactly. So, what are the hygienic behaviors that they use to keep each other disease free? Can they detect when members of the colony have a disease, right? So,
Mhm.
all of those things are things that I'm really interested in exploring. And then also, if they use these defenses to defend against disease, are those at all applicable to human health, right? So, and there's pretty good there's
Well,
good
that's how
evidence
you
that
get
they.
funding is when you make it
Mhm.
applicable to humans,
Oh, yeah, big
because
time.
that's the
So,
yeah, we don't make a lot of
yeah,
money as entomologists, and it's very hard to get funding unless you can relate it to people.
right.
Unfortunately, that's kind of how it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, so yeah, like you said, unfortunately, you're kinda limited on what you can study to if you can get funding for it. Um
And that's most of science. That's not just entomology.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
You're
for
going to
sure.
get funding if it's human anthropocentric in nature,
Mhm,
human focused. So, but I think ants are fascinating. I love them. I thinking about them like building little bridges out of their own bodies so the rest of the
mhm,
colony can
Yeah.
get to another
That's
area.
that's the part that
Yeah.
blows my mind is the level of cooperation an ant colony
Mhm.
can demonstrate when like they seem so small and so simple and
mhm,
so and yet here they are, they can do this eusocial thing where they're just like, and now all of us will do this. And I'm like, how do you
mhm.
guys all know what to do? It's crazy.
So, yeah, I mean, being a science educator or communicator like myself, I'm a vending machine of fun facts. But one of them that I have is that ants don't have very good eyes. They can't see very well. So humans, we are very visual creatures. We don't have very good, comparatively speaking, we don't have very good olfactory capabilities, which is smelling. We don't really communicate at all via pheromones. We're
Right.
highly visual,
We're
whereas
very, yeah,
ants
humans are very visual.
ants are the opposite. So ants don't have very good eyes, which makes sense because they're in very dark nests oftentimes. But what they communicate primarily through is pheromones. So they put out chemicals from their body to communicate certain things to their nest mates. So they have different pheromones for different things. And don't
Mhm.
quote me on this, but I believe it's somewhere in the 20s. They have 20 something glands on their bodies to all for a different purpose. So there's a trail pheromone. So when they walk out to go forage, and they find something, they come back. On their way back, they leave a trail pheromone to tell their nestmates where the food source is. They have a defense pheromone, things like that.
Right.
So ants communicate primarily on pheromones, and they don't actually have very good eyes. So yeah, all really, really cool stuff. And kind of going back to what you were saying, Amanda, about the communication and high organization of ants. Um, I had a researcher on my podcast recently, and he studies the relationship between ants and their tiny livestock. So there are some ants that
Mhm.
actually cultivate their own livestock in the form of mealybugs. So there are these other little bugs that they kind of farm like we would cattle, and they milk them of their sugary honeydew poop, basically. And they survive off of this honeydew. It's super cool and really bizarre. So yeah, stuff like that is like really cool to me. And ants do literally everything. Like it's awesome. So yeah, I could talk about bugs and ants all day. So
Ants are awesome. Ants are definitely awesome.
Hold on, sorry, I was sketching. Um, so with ants, the one thing how this is something I saw recently in the news
yeah.
where like they get these huge colonies. How big can an ant colony get before it has to be like, hey, this is too big? We got to break up into multiple nests. Or the rumor always is that they form these like mega colonies where you're like, actually, this one nest is like 5 miles long, and they all have like how. I guess my question is how many ants can one queen technically rule over before they're like,
Yeah.
we got to split up?
So great question. There's lots of answers to this. And first of all, the queen does not rule over the workers.
Oh.
We use the word queen, but I feel like that's not really a proper. It doesn't really encompass her role because she does not rule over the workers, and in kind of a messed up kind of way, queens of eusocial insect colonies are really more like the reproductive slaves of
Ugh.
the workers. So the workers are really in charge, and we know that because there are often instances of coup-like
Mm,
um, or usurping events in
right. I
eusocial
guess to be a
insect
queen, you'd have to
colonies.
be like giving out orders, and she's not
Yeah,
doing any
so
ordering
she
around.
really doesn't do any of that. She really just um,
Pops out eggs all day.
lays eggs, and
It's not a good
in
life. It's not a fun time.
yeah, and in the eusocial hymenoptera, so the ants, the bees, and the wasps, the queen uh, is kind of manipulating the workers in a messed up kind of way, and vice versa. So the queen actually puts out a pheromone, like I talked about a minute ago. She puts out a pheromone that dampens the workers' abilities to reproduce. Um,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah,
Because
it's totally not a ruler dynamic. She doesn't command anything. She's
interesting.
just the one that lays eggs. So yeah, that's the first part of your question. But the other part is how big can an ant colony get? And that is highly it really depends. Some ants are very small colonies, 10 to 20 workers. Those are typically larger ants. The one I'm thinking of is the trapjaw ant. Trapjaw ants are really cool for lots of reasons, but they have very small colonies. Small colonies of larger individuals that kind of do everything.
Right.
Um,
Only like 20? That's crazy. Because I think of an ant,
mhm.
and I'm thinking of like sprinkles, hundreds of thousands of little guys
Yeah.
in there.
So on the other side of things,
Sprinkles.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Just you spilled a jar of sprinkles.
yeah,
Ants.
that's how I draw ants. It's just little
Just little
dots,
sprinkles.
right? So obviously I shouldn't be the one drawing here, but um, yeah. So on the other end of the spectrum, some colonies can reach tens of millions of individuals.
Who's doing that among the ant universe?
So mostly, I would say there's uh, I think it's. Do not quote me on this. It's either a subfamily or a genus called Solenopsis, and that includes fire ants. So fire ants get
Hmm.
really big. And then another ant that I want to talk about in a minute is the Argentine ant.
Ooh,
It can
yes.
reach very, very large colonies. So ants are a little weird because all ants are actually within one family called Formicidae.
Mhm.
Um, so all ants are one family of insect within Hymenoptera that are all of them are eusocial, and there are various levels to them. So all
So there's no
honeybee,
there's no solo ants running around the way that there's like a
no
solo
such
wasp.
thing, no such
Mm.
thing that we know of alive today.
He'd be hard to find,
So
to be fair. Just
yeah,
imagine finding this one ant. Like, hey, you got any buddies? No.
no,
Whoa.
I'm a loner. Yeah, yeah.
Edgelord ant.
So ants are really cool because whereas with honeybees, there's one queen to a colony. That's true for some ants, but there are also some ants that have many queens per colony. And really, what your question, Amanda, was about how big can an ant colony get, and really the limiting factor is oftentimes it's the age of the queen. How long can a queen live, right?
Yeah.
So lots of ant colonies do only have one queen, but there are some ants that can have multiple queens per colony. But the limiting factor for those ones that only have one queen, is often how long will the queen live? And if a queen dies, it's often the demise of the colony. The colony dies off. Um, and that's why some of them have the ability to make multiple queens. Um, so yeah, really cool stuff. So
So
workers can
awesome.
reach
That's so
tens
cool.
of millions. And yeah, really cool things. But the queen in no way rules over the workers. The workers are in charge. If she's not laying enough eggs, if she's not doing her job well, they will kick her out, or kill her, or even eat her in some of them. Crazy stuff. So yeah, ants are really, really cool, and they can actually tell nestmates apart from other colonies. So that's another pheromone. Everything's got a pheromone, and they're called cuticular hydrocarbons, which are in the cuticle of individual ants. So if you've ever seen two ants go up in front of each other, they put their heads together and they kind of feel each other. And, if you've ever seen that,
Yeah.
that's them trying to
All the
recognize each
time.
other. Hmm.
Constantly creeping on ants, looking at each other.
Yeah.
Sniffing.
So the little antennae will touch the cuticle of the other ant, and they'll be able to tell if they are um, relatives or
Friend or
not.
foe.
That's
Exactly.
pretty cool.
It's very cool. So that's
We
often
couldn't do
how they.
that if you blindfolded us. It's
Yeah, there's always someone trying to claim that, like, oh well, his pheromones. And I was like, they've done all these blind experiments with, like, sniff this shirt, tell me who it belongs to, that sort of stuff.
Right.
And, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
we don't we don't
pretty
humans
cool.
are affected by pheromones, but not like that. Not
not like that.
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
Oh yeah. We've got pheromones. That's side
So like
side
Braden.
tangent.
Give us a side tangent. We love a side
Sorry.
tangent.
Side tangent. That is why, if any of you guys have siblings out there, that is why your siblings often smell very bad. Is not because they actually smell bad, is because of the pheromones they put off, because obviously
'Cause they're
being
not a
attracted
mate
to your
candidate. Yeah.
sibling, being attracted to your sibling is not an advantageous adaptation. So that's something we have, is we don't think our siblings smell good for that
Interesting.
reason.
I love my younger brother very much, but when
Mhm.
he was a teenager, I don't think that was pheromones. I think
I was gonna say
my brother
teenager, maybe
Boy,
he is objectively, as a teenager, yeah.
stinky.
Mhm.
Sorry, TJ, I love you so much.
But yeah. Did I answer your question, Amanda? There were several
yes,
parts
yes,
to it.
yes.
I don't know.
The answer seems to be, as is so often on this podcast, Kelly's always telling me, well, Amanda, it depends. It depends on what kind of ant you're talking about, what kind of, yeah. So you mentioned the
Yeah.
Argentine ant. What's so special about the Argentine ant?
Yeah, so Argentine ants are likely going to be the study system that I use when I hopefully start studying the hygienic behavior of ants. Argentine ants are very, very cool. And I'm interested in them for a number of reasons. So, Argentine ants, as the name suggests, are originally from Argentina. I know, shocker, right? But Argentine ants are really cool. But they're also kind of the worst. They are highly, highly invasive.
You're so
So,
cool, but get out of here. The
yeah,
worst person you
exactly.
know just made an excellent point.
Yeah. So, Argentine ants are ranked within the top 100 most damaging invasive species. So they're highly, highly invasive, and I'm going to talk about why that might be in a minute. But the ants themselves are very small individuals. And the name for them is Linapithema humili, and they are, again, very, very small individuals, but they can form these colonies of millions of workers, which is really cool. And they have been invasive to where I am in Florida, basically all of the southern United States, and then all the way up the coast of California as well. And they're highly adaptive, and they are really successful invasively for a number of reasons. And I want to preface this by saying ants in general are successful invasively. But the most important thing about Argentine ants, and that is that they form these things called super colonies, where basically there's these massive colonies of millions and millions of workers. That the largest one that I know of, don't quote me on this, I don't know if this is the biggest one, but the largest one I've heard of stretches all the way up and down the coast of California, so hundreds of miles. And basically what we think might have happened is those recognition cuticular hydrocarbons I mentioned, like, are all the same are across Argentine ants, is the theory. We're actually not
Ah,
sure, because what you can do is you can take an ant from Northern California, you can drive all the way down to Southern California, introduce it to an ant in Southern California, and they'll be friendly with each other.
And
They'll
they know each
recognize.
other.
Yeah.
They're siblings.
so the
Whereas,
pheromone thing says you're my sister.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's awesome.
yeah,
I
so they
love
form these super colonies, and that's it's really cool and unusual because usually ants are super territorial, right? So
Right.
if you introduce one from another colony, they'll fight. I'm sure that was everyone's
And you
favorite activity as a kid, right?
right, and then you see it on
Um,
the sidewalk, all these
mhm.
they're all freaking out.
Yeah,
You're coming
so
out with your magnifying
basically,
glass.
that's part of the reason why Argentine ants are so successful invasively, is because they form
'Cause
these massive super colonies.
and they're
So
not
really cool
competing
stuff.
against each other against like yard for yard here.
That's the thought.
Mm,
It's kind of hard to test whether or not they're actually. Most of the evidence is from recognizing each other.
right,
Um,
right,
so obviously if you took an ant from Northern California and brought it to Southern California, they're not going to be sisters. They're
right.
not going to have come from the same queen, but they see each other as within the same colony. So an interesting thing is, then it begs the question, like, well, if high relatedness within a colony is so important for eusociality, how did this happen? They're
Huh.
not going to be related at all, right? So
Right.
yeah, really cool, interesting questions to ask. And
So they recognize each other just like species wide, it seems, rather than nest to nest,
I'm actually not
colony to
positive.
colony. Mm.
Do the Argentine ants do honeydew? Are they in that group?
Not that I know of. I don't think so. Um,
I
yeah,
remember I
not
only half
offhand.
remember a story from NPR like 10 years ago, maybe even longer. And our conversation is triggering it in my mind
Hmm.
that they were trying to force the Argentine ant to fight itself by like spraying it with chemicals. Again, this is half remembered. I have no idea. You might need to cut this out because it might be nonsense. But I'm gonna. I think
So
I think I remember a radio lab about it. But
yeah, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, but that could
uh,
that could make sense to me, because again, they're invasive. So we're trying to figure out, like, how these super colonies work and what we could do against them, and to fight against the invasive ants. And
mhm.
one way we could go about that is making them not recognize each other, right? That could be really interesting. And then, um, obviously, that's kind of where the money is in Argentine ants, is because they're so invasive. So we're trying to figure out ways to naturally combat them in a way that's not destructive. Because to put it into perspective, how devastating these have been is Argentine ants are outcompeting not only native ants, but they're outcompeting the other invasive ants.
Oh, so they're the
Like,
best of the invaders.
so it's crazy. So if I were to, put them into a category, they're definitely villains, right? um, and they're outcompeting these other massively successful invasive ants, like the red imported fire ant. So, like, I'm thinking of in Florida,
Mm.
these Argentine ants are outcompeting even the worst of the invasive ants. So it's crazy stuff,
Jeez.
and it's a
Some high
big
competition
big
going
deal.
on there.
So yeah,
And they haven't reached me yet, but it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, in
Dun,
Oregon,
dun,
yeah.
dun.
I don't know. We'll see.
I'm sure they're already in Oregon, even probably. If they're in Northern California, it feels like Oregon's right there.
Oh, it looks like producer Derek just checked, and the Argentine ants are honeydew farmers. Oh, I think that just
More,
makes them even more terrifying.
Yeah.
Because they don't even need us. They got their own farms going on. Well,
Yeah.
you always hear that stat that's like the most, like you could take all other humans or all other creatures off the earth and just leave the ants, and there'd still be more ants than everybody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if I say that right. Like, there's more ants on this planet than any other creature combined.
I think it's 20 quadrillion or something is the current estimate for the number of ants on the planet. For every human, there is 2.5 million ants. So, yeah, go
You
out
have
there
to
and
fight over
claim.
2.5 million ants to stay on the
Yeah,
planet.
go out there and claim your 2.5 million ants if you haven't already. Yeah, so
got my colony.
I wonder how much.
yeah,
How much does 2.5 million ants weigh? Now I gotta know if I could
I
pick
don't
up
know.
my. How much? I'm googling now. How much does 2.5 million ants weigh?
Well, I mean, one ant weighs probably 1 milligram. We'll say 2 milligrams just in case if we want to throw in all the queens and all the big boy workers. So 2.5 milligrams per ant times how many did we say?
I found a Reddit thread that's literally just this question: can one man take on 2.5 million? Seems to be about 6 pounds.
If I'm
6 pounds.
Yeah,
I
take
heard
on 6 pounds of ants.
I heard that the biomass of ants is about equivalent to the biomass of humans. That's what I heard.
That makes sense.
Which is
Well, would
crazy
you
to
rather
think about.
would you rather fight one man-sized
Yeah.
ant, 50 ant-sized men?
I'd feel bad about crushing 50 ant-sized men, but I don't know that I could beat an ant-sized or a human-sized ant.
I don't think I could.
Though she's
Probably
coming at me
not.
with those mandibles, I don't think so. I think she'd take my arm immediately.
Yeah, and they've
I
got
think
the
it-
stingers.
She can like lift a BMW bug over her head, right? Isn't that what
Yeah,
they always say?
yeah.
I'm sorry, I gotta
Lots
crush
of
those guys.
Oh, good. Producer Derek did the math for us.
Oh, good.
So at about 2 milligrams, 2.5 million ants is about 5 kilograms, so around 11 pounds.
Okay, 11 pounds. 11 pounds of
11
ants.
pounds of ants.
Would you fight 11 pounds of ants?
I don't know if you can visualize how like
Much ant that is.
if you
I think my
if you've
cat
got like a
Darcy
small
is like
dog.
less than 11 pounds.
I was about to say
Yeah.
cat or a dog, like take that, but just ants. Oh man.
Horrifying. I've disgusted myself now. Ants.
Yeah.
That's not the goal of the podcast, Amanda. The goal of the podcast is to love the bugs, not be horrified.
But imagine your cat walks into the room and you're like, "Hey, buddy, what's up?"
And he's just ants.
And then you look closer and he's just ants.
Ants in the shape of a cat.
Yeah.
And pretending to be a cat so that you'll love the colony.
Was it Ant-Man where they have like in the movie there's like a dog-sized ant at some
Yeah,
point?
he
yes,
grows and
yeah.
shrinks the ants and like rides on them and stuff.
Didn't that ant have a name? I thought he had a really cute name.
I think the first one's Antony.
Anthony, yeah.
You're
Then
right.
there's like several other because the ants don't live very long, so surely he's going through a bunch of ants every time.
Isn't Anthony the one he rides on?
I think so, and it's like a girl male? Because it's a winged ant.
No, it's winged, so it could be a male.
Oh, okay.
Just birthing, yeah. Anthony, my goodness. Oh, I love Ant-Man. I love Paul Rudd. I think that's part of it. He seems delightful, and still not aging. By the way,
yeah, he was at the Super Bowl yesterday, and I was like, "There he is, Ant-Man." Derek has problems with that movie because there's like a guy who gets bit by a bullet ant, and he's like, "Oh, ooh," and Derek's always like, "That's not how you would react to a bullet ant. It's called a bullet ant." Derek always correct.
Dr. Schmidt will tell you how it goes.
Dr. Schmidt won't stand for this blasphemy.
Bradon, have you read Dr. Schmidt's book, Sting of the Wild?
I've been meaning to. I can't
It's
believe I haven't,
a
but now I
joy.
have
It's
time.
an absolute joy, and you must. You
I
must. It's
did
great.
I did a whole series on Bug of the Week about each of the different I think I went from like the fourth most painful all the way up to the one.
Oh, cool.
Um I did not actually get stung, obviously, but I basically
No, that's for other people. You don't have to do that.
yeah.
There's always some guy on YouTube who's going to do it for you.
There's always some man on TNT channel
Yeah.
who's willing to identify an ant.
There's always a
Yeah.
guy on YouTube willing to overreact about how
Yeah.
painful it is. So
Yeah.
yep.
For the listeners keeping track, I still have not been stung by anything. 2 years into the podcast,
We're gonna get you.
Anything.
10 plus
Any
years
she's
into
not
my
had a bee, not a
career
Never
as
a
an
wasp,
honeybee?
entomologist. Never.
What?
Nothing.
but mosquitoes love her. So
Well, they don't sting though. They bite. I've been bitten by things. I've never
Oh,
been
yeah.
stung. Yeah.
for all you know, you're highly allergic. And
Yeah.
I'm terrified to find out that I might be highly allergic to bees, and I just don't know because they've never bothered to sting me before.
That's interesting.
They recognize me as
they know you
someone
as
who
one of
loves
their
them
own.
dearly.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe try it
They-
out
they-
with a honeybee.
Just
you've got
see-
the pheromone that we can't smell as fellow humans, but the bees can. They know that you are a queen. Have you seen Jupiter Ascending?
Hey.
You need to watch Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, I have. It's bad. It's really bad.
It's bad, but the part where she controls the bees because the bees recognize royalty just kills me every
Oh,
time.
it's terrible. Braden, it's a horrible sci-fi movie from
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's
Mila
bad.
lots of good-
Kunis, I believe, is
Mila
the main
Kunis.
actress. And it's all bad.
It's the Wachowskis, and I say this every time. It's like they got paid a bunch of money to make a movie, and then they realized like the night before that they haven't written a script for anything, and so they quickly run to their childhood bedroom and they pull out like whatever fan fiction they had written at 14 and just turned that in, and we're like, this is this is our movie, and everyone was like, well, I mean, The Matrix was a big success. Maybe they know something we don't. So we're going to make the movie anyway, even though we all agree this is a bad script, right?
There's lots
And
of
then they made it, and they was like, what is happening?
there's lots of good bad bug movies.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
trying to get
we-
Kelly to watch A Bug's Life.
Yeah, I have
Oh
not
my-
watched it.
You've
haven't
not watched The Bug's Life?
No,
Isn't it
I'm a
wild?
terrible entomologist. I'm awful.
That was I grew up watching that movie. That was like my favorite movie growing up. I'm not even kidding you. I watched it probably like every day for I don't know how long. It's so good.
Destroyed the DVD. It got
I
lizards.
will put this out there that my favorite bug movie of all time is Arachnophobia.
That one's good too.
Which
I've
Have
is,
you
not seen
seen
that one.
Have you
Too
seen
many
and of course like The Fly, Jeff Goldblum
Yeah.
classic.
have you seen oh my gosh, the name just escaped me.
Sir, Derek will cut out all the bits where we can't remember what the names of things are.
Jerry
That's the whole
Seinfeld the B movie.
Oh, the
Why
B
did I
movie,
forget
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
the B movie? Yeah. I
No,
was
I
like
have
the
not.
B movie.
You
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
seen the B movie?
You haven't
No.
seen the B movie.
Oh my god, you gotta
Oh
see the
my
B movie.
gosh.
I don't watch a lot of I don't
Animated
watch a lot
films?
of like animated
Clearly.
films. Yeah.
You're
I
missing
like
out on a great subgenre here.
All
Come
right,
on.
we
I'm
need to
sure.
do a
I'm sure.
marathon of all
Do
of
a-
the awful
I'll watch
bug
along.
movies.
I like sci-fi, I like fantasy, and I like horror movies. I don't watch like a ton of, and I like Marvel movies, obviously, or I wouldn't be making this podcast.
Right. Let me assure you that the
Superhero
B
podcast.
movie, in many ways, is a horror movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
as an
no.
adult, it's pretty horrifying,
It's
honestly.
horrible things happen in the B movie that will make you scream and go,
I
"Why
will
is this
say-
happening right now?"
I will say A Bug's Life is the better bug, like kid
Yeah.
bug movie, but the B movie is memorable to say the least, and it's so wildly inaccurate.
Oh, I'm
Right.
sure.
As,
I'm
as
sure.
a
The
as a
main
scientist, you'll
character is a
watch it.
male bee, so
Yeah, exactly.
like from jump, you're
Get
not
out of
gonna
here,
do it.
buddy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I loved Adam Sandler's movie. I think it was just called Spaceman, wasn't it? With the space spider, basically. Loved
Oh
it.
no, I haven't seen this.
I don't think I know
it's
that one.
fantastic. He acts kind of almost a dramatic role against a giant space spider, which isn't ruining anything because you see that guy very soon. I think it's also in all the previews, but fantastic. Absolutely
Men in
fantastic.
Black.
Yeah.
Men in Black.
Men in Black, the big
Black.
cockroach at the end.
Mhm.
Me and my husband say sugar in water all the time. Like too much, we say it.
Oh, sugar water.
He needs sugar in water.
So Amanda,
Anyway,
I see you've been doodling over there.
I have been doodling. I was trying to color in, but I think I'm going to leave the color off for now, just for speed's sake. Let me quickly toss it over to Derek here. I didn't end up doing a hero. now I've lost all confidence in this, but we're here now.
Well, have you explained the premise to Bradon? Does he know?
Oh yeah, the premise is we make a bug hero like a la Spider-Man. Hold on, it's trying to save multiple places at once. Like every bug deserves the Spider-Man treatment, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I haven't done that this week at all. So
I'm actually really curious what you have.
Premise is nothing.
Argentine ants. If you're doing, are you doing the Argentine ant?
I am not. You'll see in just a second.
Okay.
I gotta scroll down to L for little dudes. Okay, there you go, Derek. Like I said, I started coloring it and then realized that we don't have time for me to finish coloring it. I have drawn a cutesy version of Derek will pop it up here in a second.
Yeah, I'll wait to look at it until it pops up. So we'll both be surprised, Bradon. Usually it's just me being surprised.
I've drawn the cutesy version of the little dude logo.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
That's all.
God,
That's all I was
so
doing.
cute.
An alternate pose.
Timeline. Yes. This
is
Earth 616. I don't know the Earth. Or 616 I think is the main Marvel universe.
I think we have an uneven number of legs.
Oh no. Probably.
I see 9 legs.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're totally 100% right. The other one's hidden behind his butt. That's my story. And I'm sticking to it.
Or you just commit and do a little nubbin.
Oh, like my poor cat Finn.
Yeah.
My boy Finn has a little nubbin.
Oh, okay. I think if I add yeah, there we go. It'll make more sense when it's colored that's another leg. Otherwise, it won't make any sense.
Sweet.
So cute, Amanda. So cute. We love Lil Dude's Message. What an awesome nonprofit to have. We need, like you said, we need more entomologists.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Maybe after I'm hired full time, guys, you simmer down for a little while till your old pal Kelly gets a job. It's a full time job.
They got to go through school first, so
yeah,
they got time. The middle schoolers now are what, 13, 14? You've got 10 years before they're your direct competition.
Well, I will teach them then. They'll make it to college, and I will teach them.
Yeah, and then
I would love that so much.
They'll get to your program, and they'll be and you'll be like, oh my gosh, these kids are so annoying. They act like they know everything. Yeah. What am I even?
Why are you here if you already know
everything?
And they'll say, we went to Little Dude's Bug Academy already, Professor Kelly. We don't even need you anymore. And you're like, my gosh, good thing I have tenure.
And you're just gonna be like, curse you, Bradon.
Yeah.
Curse you, Bradon.
Bradon will have made the students so smart. They won't need to be with me anymore.
No.
Actually, Miss Kelly, Bradon said that.
I don't have to fight you, but I don't want to do that, Bradon.
You'll have to go to Panama for a punch-out fight. We'll have to buy tickets.
Wait, we'll have to meet in Panama just to fight?
Yeah. It's a special fight. It's for some reason it's illegal in the United States to fight.
Yeah, it's the one night only.
One night only, direct from Panama. Pay-per-view. Kelly versus Bradon.
Next year at the ESA, Bradon, I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
Squared up.
No. Well, if you make it out to ESA, Bradon, it's in Portland next year, so.
Yes, it is.
I'll be there.
Amanda will be there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's exciting. Have you ever been?
I've never been.
Oh, man, it's a party. Yeah.
So I'm very excited. It's still so far away, and I'm still just like, what am I going to do at ESA? maybe I should make some stickers for ESA. And I'm like, Amanda, you need to calm down. It's so far away still. But
Absolutely.
it's
Hey,
good
it'll
to
come
make
up
merit.
before you know it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is true. The time is both so slow and so fast. I don't understand how it can be both things at once.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so once again, it's the Little Dudes Bug Academy. I keep saying Bug Academy. Is that right?
Little
Or is
Dude's
it
Insect Academy.
Insect
Close enough.
Academy? There you go.
Yeah.
Little Dudes Insect Academy is a great program, great nonprofit. We're really excited to talk about it.
We will have links to all of
Yeah.
Bradon's stuff in our show notes for anyone interested to check him out.
Mhm.
I know we do have teachers who listen to the podcast. Please consider contacting Bradon if you'd like to talk about updating your curriculum or having him speak remotely, but at your school. That would be awesome.
Get an ant farm for your middle school science class.
Heck yeah.
You could find all those links on our website and all of our socials. Bugs Need Heroes. Come visit us. Come talk to us. We're on Reddit. We're on Instagram. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Facebook. We're out there. Just
We're
do a
around.
little searchy search. Just open up a new tab. Just put in Bugs Need Heroes, and you'll find us on your preferred platform. Other than that, anything else we need to? No. Other than that, I love you. Goodbye. Bugs Need Heroes was created by Derek Conrad and Kelly Zimmerman. Hosted by Amanda Niday and Kelly Zimmerman. Bugs Need Heroes is produced and edited by Derek Conrad, with some assistance from Chelsey Bawden and a few cats. Character art is by Amanda Niday. Our music is Ladybug Castle by Roll Music. Got a bug question? Email us at bugsneedheroes@gmail.com. Check us out at bugsneedheroes.com, and most of the socials are under Bugs Need Heroes. Thanks for stopping by.
I'm actually this is, hours away, but I'm having Christy Bills on my podcast.
Oh, fantastic. She's lovely.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yes, she's so
Yeah.
cool.
She
You're
is
gonna
great.
you're gonna want to be her best friend by the end of the
I know. I wanted to be her best friend so bad. By the end, I was like, how do I get Christy to be my friend?
Oh yeah, she's awesome.